na na, yeah. I feel it. Oh 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 na na, yeah. I feel it.
What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Bones to go back here with another episode of Conversations That Cure. As you can see, we do have another guest with us today, but before we do that, we can go ahead and make sure we introduce everybody here. Like I said, Corey Sturkey, aka Bones to Go.
I'm Michael Ryder, aka Ryder Grooms.
Gregory Sturkey, aka Pops.
As you can see, we have a guest with us here today, my boy Mark. Man, appreciate you
Thanks for
for
having me.
giving us your time. We met at Michi's birthday dinner, and
Shout out Michi Moria.
shout out to Michi
Shout out to Michi.
and the Million Youth Mission.
Yes.
Shout out to the organization. But we were there and we were kind of celebrating the start of the Million Youth Mission, and Michi invited you to come there because you were somebody that's close to her. So it was great that we all got to be there at dinner that night, and you was there with your wife, and conversation started when we were discussing parenting.
Right.
And all of us here are fathers, and just different. We have different journeys on our fatherhood, and it was great to get to have a conversation with another dad that has a completely different perspective and outlook on fatherhood.
Right.
And I felt like it was very important that we bring that value to our platform, so that way you could possibly help other men, other fathers, either other parents
Right.
that are in certain situations or contemplating doing some of the things and tools and implementing some of the lifestyles and lessons that you have with your children and with your wife and amongst your household. But before we really dig deep into that, tell us a little bit about yourself, man.
I am a small business owner, Haitian American, raised here in Florida, born in Florida by a single, strong mother. I have 3 children, a 20-year-old, a 9-year-old, and a 6-year-old, and I'm just trying to be the best human I could be, man, and passing it down to my children as well.
For sure. So I know why I wanted, Mark to be here. Ryder wasn't there that night. It was me and Pops was. What was something that stuck out to you that made you be like, we got to get Mark on the pod?
Well, the thing that stuck out was that he homeschools his children. And not only do he homeschool his children, he's a man. Anytime you hear homeschool, the first thing that you go to is
Mother.
a woman,
Yeah.
a mother.
Right.
For sure.
And the fact that he's a man and he homeschooled his kids, I said, hands down, we need to have him on the show, because I want to know, as a man, how do you go about schooling your kids, being a teacher, and then being a father?
Right.
And those are the things that, I'm quite sure the audience wants to hear. I know you have a lot of tools to share, with that, because it's very far. And I'm not saying that there's not any men out there that don't homeschool. Let me just back up and say that. But I don't know of one personally. So I want to hear, what made you do it? How did you get to this place? How long you been doing it? I want to hear about that.
Initially, it was a conversation between my wife and I after the schooling experience of our older son, who lives in Puerto Rico now. We just had bad experiences with teachers and the learning styles, and just dealing with teachers who weren't necessarily invested into what they were doing. And I can't blame them, because being a school teacher now is a very, very hard thing, and they're coming younger and younger, and you got 30 kids to one classroom. How is a child really effectively supposed to learn that way?
Yeah.
And I understand some parents got to do what they got to do, but my wife, we sat down and we talked about it, and we made an executive decision, and we caught a lot of hell for it.
Okay.
We still catch hell for it from my parents, from my mom in particular. You know, because she's old school. She comes from old school Haiti. You know, that island way of thinking is like you have to do things this way. So
Yes. Yes.
when my wife and I decided to do this, we knew there was going to be backlash, but we decided that we wanted more for our kids, but we wanted them to absorb a real truth,
Okay.
not a truth that's been you know, recycled over and over and over again, and kids are kind of like in an assembly line when it comes to school. You know, and it's hard to talk about this with certain people because they immediately get defensive. We do that with our children. I don't expect anybody else to do it with their children because it takes a lot of patience. It takes a lot of patience. So, you know, the wife and I decided that, we were going to actually do this, and we didn't have a plan going into it, like straight up. You know, we did research. We were like, it's one of those things where you got to like dive in head first and say, you know, whatever, you know, we just take it one by one. But being in the profession that I was in, I had a lot of teachers as clients, so they advised me on the proper steps to take.
Okay.
In order to make it work and not be so systematic.
Okay.
Yeah.
Systematic. And that's, you know, that's what school can teach you, to be so robotic.
Yes.
You know, I'm not saying that there's not certain tasks that you have to sit down and focus on, but it does not allow any room for you to think this way or think that way or think this way. The way that the teacher tells you you have to think about it, you literally rack your brain trying to think in that fashion. So
Yeah.
we're trying to get our kids to think outside of the box. So that's how we came about it initially.
How was it? So you taking all of this on, what would you say? Because obviously, you know, you're the teacher, you're teaching the kids, but at the same time, this is something that's new for you and your wife as well.
Right.
What would you say are some of the qualities that you've gained being the teacher and being the one that's predominantly educating the kids? Like, what changed in you, or what did you have to change in order to be the best version of yourself, to be the best teacher for the kids?
That's a great question, man. Well, I consider myself to be a person that has a lot of patience, but patience with other people and then patience with your children, two different things.
Yeah.
Especially when you rocking that teacher hat. I noticed my daughter, she learns the same way that I learned. It's like I was always at the front of the class, audio, you know, visual. I have to learn, I have to hear what the teacher says over and over and over again, you know? And that's the way she learns. My son, you tell him something one time and he learns it quick.
Okay.
You know, so we kind of had to start dividing the attention we gave. So it required me to really tap into a deeper level of patience when it came to my daughter, because honestly, I'm looking at my small self in a girl version.
All right. All right.
You know,
All right.
And I feel her when she's going through these math problems, which my wife teaches, by the way. The frustration that she feels, because I was her.
Okay.
You know, so I had to tap into like I said, a deeper level of patience and realize that she really is trying her best. You know, because when I was telling my teachers I was trying my best, they didn't necessarily believe me. And then coming home to a mother who didn't speak the language, who was just worried about putting food on the table. And you know, if you have parents who are from the Caribbean, you know what I mean. When I say this, you couldn't go to them with these things, you know. And it made me feel some kind of way, but I lacked resources in that department. Now with my daughter and my son, I do not lack those resources. It's just learning how to teach. So it was just, you know, going online, asking a lot of questions. When you step into this role, you have to learn how to be a student all over again yourself. You know, I say this all the time to my wife. My children are my teachers.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, I learn just as much from them as I'm, you know, trying to teach them. You know, and that's I can say those two things: patience, and learning how to teach. Patience and learning how to teach. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So, with your kids being homeschooled, obviously they have social interactions with one
Right.
another.
Right.
It's like almost like a two-part question that I have for you. Do you see them interacting with other children in more of like a mature type of manner, especially learning and being so close with you and your wife, right? Because within public schools, you know, kids may tend to have other tendencies that they learn from other kids,
Absolutely.
or things like that. So that's like the first part of the question, and the second part is, what do you guys do to help them kind of hone those social skills? Do you put them in extracurriculars or stuff like that so that they're able to get the interactions with other kids their age and things like that?
Right. That's a question that a lot of people ask us. You know, people are like, well, are they going to be like hermits or monks, or like do they know how to speak?
I grew up with kids that I played sports with kids who were homeschooled,
Right.
and they were completely different than like
Right.
what you would see. So that's why.
I really think that comes down to the individual parents. I know it does. For us, we are kind of a hard knock type of teaching style when it comes to emotions and dealing with other people. I'm really big on emotional intelligence, like learning how to manage your anger and not really giving in to what people are trying to feed you all the time. Like my daughter, you know, I call her my little hippie because she wants everybody to love her. And one day I had to break it down to her, like, yo,
Yeah.
It's not how
that's
real life works.
it's not gonna happen like that. You know, shout out to my wife too. My wife's upbringing was a little bit different than mine. Not a little bit different, a lot different than mine. So her life was definitely a lot more harder than mine as far as an upbringing goes. So the way she demonstrates it to our children is like you have to be able to go through these things no matter how much it hurts. No matter how much it hurts. So, you know, you're gonna meet the bully. You're gonna meet the person who tries to take advantage of you. You're gonna meet the kid who tries to get you to curse. You know, my son is kind of on that tip right now. You know, so you just have to kind of take it day by day as far as telling them like, so, you know, what do you think about it? Like, how do you feel?
Yeah.
You know, I feel like people don't actually sit there and talk to their kids, like have full-blown conversations with their kids just because they're children. You know, sometimes we try to minimize their level of intelligence because of their age.
Yeah.
You know, and that's not really the way to go. We do live in a fast-paced world now, so sometimes it's just people having to go from point A to point B and not really, you know, absorbing what their children are going through or what their children are telling them, unless it becomes an issue. Unless it becomes an issue. But I teach at our local YMCA, so they get a lot of interaction. They do taekwondo. They do a lot of other events there, and they
Keep them active.
yeah. Oh, it's definitely. They know, you know, that they have a certain level of respect that they have to show, first of all, to themselves and to other people. You know, and it's not just adults. I feel like sometimes we teach children we only have to show respect to adults. You show respect to everybody.
Yeah.
You know, so that's how we really try to handle that.
So with your daughter, you mentioned that she learns how you learn your visual, audio, and
Right.
but your son he gets it quick.
Right.
And I'm seeing that it have a similar situation with my daughter. She's quick with things, like she picks up stuff very fast.
Right.
But with my son, it's the same thing, and I see exactly how I was when I was a child, the way that he is as well.
Right.
So what I want to ask you is, in those moments where she is frustrated, what are you doing to remind her that she's still smart, she's still intelligent? Just because you don't get this right here, it doesn't
Right.
mean that you're dumb and that you're not smart as other kids in the class, or just in general.
Well, the beautiful thing about homeschooling, in my own opinion, is that there's no time restraints. You know, in school, sometimes a lot of the pressure comes from time. Like, you know, you got a time test. You got to finish this assignment
Classes.
before the bell rings.
Yeah.
You know, you get a pop quiz. You got to finish it before before the bell goes off. So
Now you got the anxiety on top of
Right.
already having the learning disability as it is.
So it's, you know, it's really about connecting with her and really going a little bit slower and letting her know, I repeat, like, it's okay. Take your time. It's okay. Take your
And
time.
I love that because with my son Kai, we had a meeting at his school, and for years they were saying that he was ADHD. We got him
Right.
tested 3 times from 3 different specialists, and everybody said no,
Right.
that he's not ADHD. So I was like, if that's not the case, what am I not doing to help him bridge that gap?
Right.
So we had a conference with his teachers, this counselor and the school psychiatrist, and the principal, and they brought up something and it messed me up so bad. He was in class. He was in 3rd grade. He was in class and they was doing a test, a math test or a reading test. And he struggled with reading, and he got a bad grade on it. And he beat himself up so much that he took a sticky note and he wrote on his sticky note that I'm stupid.
Oh.
And he put it on his forehead. And when she said that in the class, like, it messed me up so much. Because it's like, I didn't even look at the situation and get mad. I looked at it and I internalized it with myself. It was like, I got to do more.
Right.
I have to remind him of what his value is, who he is. And the first thing I said to him, I was like, "How does everybody in the class draw better than you?" And he's like, "No." I said, "Are there kids in the class that you run faster than?" He's like, "Yeah." I was like, "Are there kids in the class that you are better at math than?" He's like, "Yeah." I said, "Exactly."
Right.
Everybody has their thing.
Right.
Nobody walks into a classroom as the perfect student. You're there to learn.
You empowered him.
And I had to remind him, I was like, "Man, it's okay.
Right.
It's okay. And we'll work with you on this." But I feel like it's so important having these conversations, like you saying, like my dad will tell you, I'm that way with my son because he was that way with me.
Right.
I sit down and I make him speak to me and he's comfortable sharing to me the things that he's very vulnerable and insecure about.
Right.
So by him doing that, it allows me to kind of get a game plan together. So now when he does struggle with things, it's easy. He'll talk to me, he'll communicate. We don't have those problems where he calls himself stupid or he says he's dumb. Because now I instilled, me and his mother, not me and his mother, we both instilled the value that he possesses.
Right.
You know, and I started focusing on the things that he does do good and making sure that I'm feeding those avenues to help build his confidence. 'Cause like you were saying, emotional intelligence is a trait that a lot of adults learn later on in life, and there's this misconception that that's not something that children should be taught.
Right. Right. Absolutely. And that's the beautiful thing, man. I appreciate you for sharing that story. And you know, I feel like as parents, and as Black parents, we got to come from a whole nother lane when you parent our children, because there's certain things that we have to worry about. So on top of, you know, like your son, on top of being a Black male, he's gonna have to worry about his intelligence level, maybe amongst other kids who are in his class. And I think it's a beautiful thing that you made him feel comfortable enough to empower him, to tell him that, yo, you're going to make it. This is just another level that you have to go through. And that's what I try to do, my wife and I, we try to do with our kids. There's a lot of outside influence as far as, like, you know, my mother goes, and, you know, children at the YMCA and them just asking questions when they see other children doing other things that they haven't really been exposed to, you know. So now it's like it's kind of like homeschooling is a Pandora's box. Shit comes out of the left, you know, things happen and you're like, oh,
I wasn't ready for this.
Right, right. So now you got to react quick. But something that I'm really learning right now, that they're teaching me is you do not have to answer every question. So like you got to be able to tell your kids, I don't know.
Removing that pride from it, that ego.
Right. And as adults, sometimes we feel like we have to know everything, you know, and I think it takes a certain level of vulnerability to tell your children, like, look, we don't have to Google this.
I don't know,
We
bro.
don't have to go on.
We can learn this together.
Right, exactly. And sit down and watch a tutorial about it. You know, there's a lot of words that they ask me about, and I consider myself a pretty smart guy with a good vocabulary. But there's some words, you know, they'll be like, what exactly does this mean? They want the root meaning of it. And my son is like that, you know. He's extremely analytical. He really wants to know. So I feel like we really have to be conscious as parents.
So let me ask you a question. How do you deal with your son wanting to know everything? How do you separate the fact that you don't need to know everything? You need to learn to trust. If I tell you something, you trust in what I tell you as your father.
Right.
And as your teacher. So how do you deal with that right there so they don't get caught up in, if I don't know it, it may not work?
I kind of just try to deal with it at the moment. Sometimes it's a push and pull thing, you know, because I'll ask him, why do you need to know this? You know, and sometimes his answer is just because, you know, and then I'll come up with the best answer that I can at that moment in time. Like, for example, you know, you guys having children, you know, when they eat, they want to eat back to back to back to back to back. You know, I tell my kids, like, hey, give your food time to digest. And my 6-year-old, he tells me, no, my body doesn't work like that. I'm like, what you mean your body doesn't work like that? You know, he has his own concept of how he thinks his body works, you know, but that's how he's thinking. So scientifically, you know, I have to tell him, like, your digestive system needs time to break down food, you know, so it can pass through your intestines. So I break it down for him, and he'll partly listen to me, and then he'll be like, okay, he kind of gets it. Can I still have a snack though? you know, so it's trying to get those messages in a little bit at a time, because personally, I don't think you're ever going to be able to feed a kid whatever you're trying to tell them and make them get the gist of the message all in one sitting.
No.
You know, it's like an adult. You're gonna take things in piece by piece.
You gotta digest it.
Right.
You have to digest it.
I think nowadays in life, because of, you know, me and my fiance was at the movie theater one time, and then we saw this little girl walking around with a chain around her neck, and she was barking. So she was jumping up the chair to chair. And her father was sitting right there.
Right.
He was just sitting there, you know. She identifies herself as a dog. And with all of that going on, I guess the thing that's out in the atmosphere is that you have to let your children be who they are.
Right.
So my question is then, as a parent, then where do a parent step in?
Well, I think that's like playing pretend, but you're not in the house. If she was acting like a dog in the house, you know, you just look at her and be like,
no,
well, she's just playing.
No, that's how they are.
Right, but she does that in public. It's a different thing. So now I think the parents look at themselves like, you're not supposed to be playing pretend out of the house. We keep this type of behavior in the house, but how do you realistically restrain expression? And why would you do it? It's a phase. You know, I feel like it's a phase, and I feel like we all go through our phases growing up. You know what I mean? And it's a part of getting to know yourself. Now, if she starts, walking on all fours and
We got a
wearing a
problem.
dog tag and
That's what she was doing.
So
Yeah.
I think as she gets older, you pay attention to that behavior, and they're gonna have to figure out what they're going to do with that, because there's a reason why she's wanting to act like that. You don't know if her parents talk to her like, hey, why do you feel like you're a dog? As silly as that sounds, you got to ask those
conversation.
you got to ask
That's
those
a real
questions.
conversation.
Conversation that needs
You
to be
know?
had.
So again, that just goes back to like speaking to your children.
Yeah.
Really, really, really speaking to your children, and not speaking down to them. Like the other day, I was having an issue with my daughter, with her cleaning up, and I was being stern with her. I wasn't raising my voice because I really try consciously not to raise my voice. I just change the tone of my voice. Like they know when I'm, when it's about business.
Yeah.
And she's, she looked at me a certain way because I don't get like that very often.
Okay.
Except when they're not doing things that, their mother or I asked them to do. And I said, why are you looking at me like that? Just to kind of get what she's thinking. She's like, well, I feel like you're kind of yelling at me a little bit. And I said, calmly, I said, I'm not yelling at you. I just asked you to do something more than 3 times and it has not gotten done. So you have not shown me respect. I've given you, more than ample opportunity to do this. And so now it's getting past the point where it's like you're looking at me like I'm playing, and I'm not playing, and and this is how I'm speaking to her. My wife has really gotten me to understand, like, the coddling. We don't do that. we don't coddle children.
I got to step in just a little bit on that, because I kind of view it from your wife's point of view.
Right.
I'm that person.
Okay.
Like if I ask you to do something, if I'm asking you a 3rd time, you flying across the room.
Right.
I'm not going to ask you a 3rd time.
Right.
If I ask you the 1st time, you do it.
Right.
Period. There's no, I'm not going to baby shoot. And the only reason I say that is because of this. Outside, if a cop tell you don't move,
Right.
and he got to ask you 3 times, nowadays,
That could be life or death.
that would be life or death.
Right.
So if I'm going to speak to you and tell you, boom, do this, you're going to do it.
Right.
And that's it.
And I think now, coming from somebody who's lived that, and experienced what he's talking about,
Right.
I feel like this it's needed, but I feel like there should definitely be a happy medium between the two.
Right.
There has to be a balance, because, mind you, my father doing that was great, but he was doing that because that's all he knew.
Right.
That's the only way he knew how to discipline and how to get his point across at that time. Because as I begin to age older, more conversations begin to take place. So look, I done told you to do this. You're not doing it. Now these are the consequences of it.
Right.
When at first my father was dealing with it, because the way that he would discipline was, I told you to do this, get it done right now. And that's how, so he gave what he was given.
Right.
So I feel like as a parent now, it's my job to take the things that he did good and the things that he didn't do and implement them as a parent. So I do, I come from the same way. I try not to yell at my kids as much as I possibly can, but I've established such a strong relationship with them to where they know when I'm serious.
Right.
And I got that from him.
Right.
To where I'll just stare at them and I don't have to say nothing.
The look.
I don't have to say nothing, that they know exactly what I'm on. But then I also have that other side to where I understand that a kid asking me why isn't an immediate challenge of my authority.
Right.
You know, I had to separate my ego from it and be like, maybe this human being that hasn't been on this earth for longer than 10 years, maybe they really don't know what I'm telling them.
Right.
Now, if he brought that up, now, when is it time where you say to your child, you teaching them, I don't need to give you an answer.
But
I told you to do something, you do it. And I just want to say, and going back to the way you are with your daughter, I dealt with my daughter the same way.
Right.
because she was a girl. So I had to be a little more gentle. With him, no,
Right.
no, not at all.
But he did that
Not at all.
he did that, and I didn't understand it as a child. But I thank God that he did do it, because he gave me a quality as a father and a disciplinary that I absolutely needed in this day and era. But I also understood as I grew mentally and emotionally, and I understood myself, I knew that these are other things that my child needs. But we're gonna cut it right there, y'all. For this episode, we're gonna jump right back into this one for the next one.
Yeah.
And thank y'all so much for tuning in. If y'all following us on the gram, please like, comment, subscribe. Our TikTok, our Instagram, our YouTube channel, please leave the comments, share that. Man, it's episode 1, man, great. I got a lot more stuff that I want to say, man. Please stay tuned. I'm Bones the Goat.
Michael Ryder, aka Ryder Grooms.
Gregory Sturkey, aka Pop.
All right, Mark.
All right, all right.
Y'all be safe.